People who got laid off because of AI. What was your job? Not me personally, but I do know of someone who worked in HR at their firm and was laid off a while back after being told they were outsourcing the department to India. It turns out that was not the complete truth. Their whole HR department is now AI implemented, with a handful of staff in India basically there to chime in where needed. I was a floor cleaner. They have robot now for accounts payable, let go in late 24. Made a nice side income writing pet care articles and product information for a few years in there. About early mid-2022, spending on pet care stuff went way down due to inflation, people buying the cheapest option, buying fewer toys and non-essentials, etc. And then right after that, the SEO started getting flooded with poorly written AI articles. Mid-2023, my main client invited me to switch to an editor role for AI articles, and I noped out of there. Luckily, it was never money I depended on. Really thought some people are getting laid because of AI. I read it the same way, lol. Like, how are there so many experiences of getting laid through AI? How does that even happen? Then I reread the question. Graphic designer, actually creative director. I managed a team. Whole marketing department was cut for restructuring, aka cost-saving measures, but aspirations for replacing our salaries with AI was a big part of it. In reality, I do use AI every day for my job now, but it hasn't replaced me, only made me more cost-effective. That's going to be the story with most careers once the AI high wears off and the hangover sets in, once C-suite realizes AI can't actually fully replace people. To be honest, this might be one of the better jobs to be replaced by AI. Some of the most successful CEOs are the ones that make ruthless decisions. There is nothing really preventing a well-tuned AI from scraping massive amounts of information to make decisions way faster than a person, and even has almost no ethical understanding. It would just review the information submitted by people with actual skill sets and go from there. It would be able to keep track of and balance all of that way more efficiently. The only thing that might be missing is the massive brown nosing and charisma for networking, but really anyone could do that. My boss, an Air Force veteran, wrote for and received a federal grant to hire some not-so-traumatized veterans to help man the phones to help other veterans looking for help navigating their meager VA benefits. Doge killed our grant, and I've been out of work for a year while I try and find another fully remote job during the biggest shit show this country has ever seen since the turbulent 60s. Wasn't laid off, but designed the AI system. We had a data entry job that required hundreds of people. Once we got enough data entry, we could train the system to automatically fill in the blanks some of the time. This required fewer people to do data entry. Rinse and repeat until only the hardest work and the best data entry were left. Note that we had rigorous quality targets, 98% or better. This required a robust QA program. The absence of that QA program is a big concern about current AI systems. Our type of AI is called an expert system, and it's been around for a long time. In my personal life, I've fired people via AI. Again, this is more of an erosion of work than a blanket rip and replace. I check the internet before seeing a doctor. Same with broken appliances or cars. This leads to less work going to the pros. Again, it's nothing new. Recently, I've used Claude to answer financial investment questions. This reduces the work routed to educators and financial planners. My individual contribution is minimal, but there are millions of me looking for a cheaper, faster solution. And these are high-touch jobs, so removing a little work has an overweight impact on the profession. Game artist, animator, UI, many hats. 15 years doing creative work and a healthy freelance biz on the side for logos, game assets, small animations, etc. I've bounced around many projects and studios all my life. Projects end, games get released, studios close. All that stuff is common in tech. But when my entire studio shuttered back in 2022, something felt different when I went back on the job hunt. I got bad vibes that this time wouldn't be like the others and left the industry and started retraining in the health sector. I'm glad I pivoted when I did. Tech has continued to bleed and implode, and my freelance work has almost all dried up because people would rather eat the AI vomit because it costs less. A lot of times they don't even hire anyone to do edits or final passes even. So I went from a healthy wage and career in creative tech to barely scraping by, but at least I have a job. AI and overseas outsourcing killed everything else. Was a 2D television animator for just about 15 years. My departure from my final animation role wasn't directly caused by layoffs or the industry collapse, and there were other life factors involved, but the writing was on the wall for that career. Wages were dropping, and production roles that had been everywhere almost totally vanished by the end of 2023. Senior artists were accepting entry-level wages whenever an opportunity did happen to arise, and a major studio I'd worked for has now shuttered entirely. It's sad out there. I'm in my first year of a nursing degree now. I specialize in game test automation, and one publisher I worked with had AI solutions they were trying to push on us. While technically impressive, the outputs were not. Can't really go into any more details due to NDAs. I've heard whispers of fully autonomous AI-driven solutions which can do functional and exploratory testing. I remain skeptical about the practical applications of such products. However, most game companies I've worked for lack traditional automation, let alone AI. I was the guy who had to write the friendly, human-sounding automated rejection emails. The irony is not lost on me. Help desk analyst providing support for clinical trials. Apparently, the parent company's AI was able to handle almost all tickets in English, so everyone that wasn't fluent in another more demanding language like Russian or French had to go. I got called into a Teams meeting within 20 minutes of being on the clock with a quick, "Thanks for your efforts, here's the door. We'll reach out with more details eventually." And that was that. Spent 3 months not doing anything, still getting paid until they sent the details for their layoff package. Now I'm unemployed and everything I see is outside of my skill set, and I'm not going back to working retail in stores.
I was gonna joke and say answering random questions online, but then had suddenly remembered I actually did have a job like that once. Back in like 2006-ish, there was this site that you could work for. I don't really remember the details, but basically you filled out this profile which told the company what sort of thing you're already knowledgeable in, and typing speed and research skills, etc. You would then sit in this sort of lobby thing, and at some point a user question would get funneled your way. A clock would start and you would answer the question as accurately and as fast as you could. The pay was based on number of questions answered, but it was still like pennies. I think I gave it a good go for about a week, about 4 to 5 hours each day, and made a little over $1. Anyway, kind of wild thinking back and remembering that now, what with LLMs being what they are and all. One of these was called Cha-Cha. Me too. Oh yeah, that was the name. It seemed like such a great idea at the time. Don't need a degree, don't need a ton of work experience, from the comfort of my home. Easy money. Nah, LLM can have that one. Not laid off myself, but members of my team were due to AI. I'm a compliance officer at a business that deals mostly with business utilities. One of the biggest parts of my job is listening to sales calls to determine if they were conducted compliantly, to keep assurance we are selling everything legally. We tried to move this to AI as it can cover more than a team of 20 people and allow us to concentrate on other areas of the business. They laid off 5 people from my team anticipating that we won't need as many people. That was 6 months ago, and the AI is woeful. It's subject to constant delays. Utter disaster. We now have less people doing more of these audits with the other work that was planned, and burnout is real. Graphic designer here, but would say I got laid off indirectly because of AI. My manager was not a designer and had no idea how anything worked. Had no clue about differences in RGB and CMYK and why we couldn't just send any digital design directly to print. Vector versus rasterized, layers, literally knew nothing. However, like so many leadership people, she was amazed by what AI could do and would ask me every single day why I didn't do my task with AI. Told me refusing to use AI is a problem, so I was part of the next company-wide layoff round. It's now 6 months later and nothing visual gets done anymore. Maybe a social media image made with the templates I created, but no changes on the website, no website image assets, no PDFs to download, nothing. Do you still talk to employees from that company? How's the morale there? Did AI integration make them more productive, like how most CEOs and shareholders hope for? To keep it short, morale is abysmal. Lots of people left on their own without having anything new on the horizon. Lots of leadership people laid off later as well. Company is going down. Couldn't be happier for that company. Good riddance. I hope you end up with a secure and well-paying job, and fuck that ugly-ass company.
Not me personally, but my graphic designer friend has had several clients drop him because they now use AI for their logos. Some others have used the threat of using AI to try to lower his rate, saying, "Why should I pay that much when I can just use AI?" I was a technical writer Q for a software firm. My entire department was sunsetted because management figured the AI documentation was 80% there. What they didn't realize is that the last 20% is where the actual safety and logic live. Now, instead of a clean manual, customers have to spend hours prompting a chatbot to explain why the software is throwing an error. I work in heavy industry, rail, tech writing. Thankfully, as of this response, I'm still employed, but who knows what the future brings. I do know that upper management has tried using AI to make maintenance documents and such, but the AI likes to hallucinate and add components and controls that don't actually exist. This creates huge safety risks and confusion because the end user on these machines is rarely coming from an engineering background and needs clear steps to perform their work. I'm uncertain of how long a human hand will be involved in checking behind our up-and-coming AI overlords, but the thought of this sort of thing being completely hands-free is kind of terrifying. I was not laid off, but I witnessed others. In a previous job at a hospital I was temping at, they had a pool of medical secretaries, about 40 people transcribing dictations, writing letters, etc. They moved to an AI system. Now, AI transcribes and writes the letters and does the dictations, and about 6 people check the output. What used to be a whole floor in a building is now a small office. Yep, transcription as a job is almost done for. We've had speech to text for a decade now, but the AI explosion has been the killer blow. My workload fell last year by something like 96%, and one of the jobs I did get was checking AI transcripts. My guess is copy editing Q will be next. I'm also a copy editor. A relative of mine worked as an insurance go-between for a hospital. They would basically fight for patients' coverage, etc. Job evolved into fighting AI for denied claims, then was just replaced by AI altogether. He felt like it was now AI versus AI, but really I think they are all in cahoots to maximize profits on both ends. The one interview I did where it was fully automated, I was rejected from. 2 days later, the job was reposted. It's been a few months since then, and I've seen the job reposted multiple times. I really would love to know what the intention behind that is, because I can only imagine they're harvesting data to sell from applicants. They have as many legal and compliance risks as in-person interviews, which is why they haven't taken off. This one worries me because I do recruitment and HR at the company. I know people who would recommend cutting people for AI. They're idiots. I've seen HR people promoted for recommending dumb shit, and then leave it for others to clean up. For what it's worth, the recruiter who phoned you, if they understood it, probably felt like a right tool. I did an AI interview at a company yesterday. It was so bad.